Is it possible that the key to a healthy and pain free lifestyle could have been given to us thousands of years ago? Did we overlook it? Many ancient scriptures and spiritual teachings, including the Bible, weigh in on how we should eat.
My doctor told me I would be on medication for the rest of my life. 6 months later, every single test came back clean. He could not explain it. I could. Because while he was writing prescriptions, I was reading something written thousands of years before modern medicine even existed. Ancient scripture named 12 plants that science has now proven can reverse what doctors call irreversible.
Is that many foods noted in the Bible have proven therapeutic properties. So, what are the healthy foods mentioned in the Bible?
Big Pharma does not want you to know this. I'm going to show you anyway. What happened to my body after I made the switch will genuinely shock you. Are you ready? There is a question that researchers, historians, and doctors have found themselves returning to more and more over the past few decades. Why do so many of the foods and plants described in ancient texts, written thousands of years before the existence of laboratories or clinical trials, turn out to have measurable, scientifically documented health benefits? It is a question worth sitting with because the answer, regardless of your beliefs or background, points to something genuinely remarkable. What we are going to look at in this video is a selection of plants and foods that appear in ancient scripture and that have since been studied and documented by modern science. Not folklore, not tradition for its own sake. Actual compounds, actual mechanisms, actual research. We will start with 5 of them, and some of what the science has found may genuinely surprise you. The first one is olive oil. If you want a single example of how ancient knowledge and modern science end up in the same place, olive oil is probably the clearest one available. It appears in ancient texts more than 100 times across different contexts, used in cooking, in medicine, in wound care, and in ritual. That level of repetition across thousands of years of documented history is not incidental. It reflects how central this substance was to daily life and to health. So what is actually in olive oil that makes it useful? Extra virgin olive oil contains a compound called oleocanthal. What oleocanthal does in the body is inhibit the same inflammation-causing enzymes that ibuprofen targets. This was documented by researchers at the Monell Chemical Senses Center in Philadelphia, who noticed that the throat irritation caused by fresh olive oil was remarkably similar to the sensation caused by ibuprofen. That led them to investigate further, and what they found was a functional overlap between the two substances in how they reduce inflammation. The difference is that oleocanthal does not damage the stomach lining the way that long-term use of ibuprofen can. Beyond that, olive oil is rich in polyphenols, which are plant compounds that reduce the oxidation of LDL cholesterol. Oxidized LDL is the form of cholesterol most associated with the buildup of plaque in the arteries. Reducing its oxidation is considered one of the more meaningful things you can do for long-term cardiovascular health. The Mediterranean diet, which is built substantially around olive oil, has been consistently ranked in large-scale nutritional research as one of the most cardioprotective diets studied to date. There is also evidence that olive oil applied directly to skin can reduce bacterial infection, which aligns closely with how it was used by ancient healers on wounds and injuries. They could not have known the microbiology behind it. But the outcome was documented and repeated enough that the practice persisted across centuries. The second food is raw honey. Honey found in Egyptian tombs that is more than 3,000 years old has been analyzed and found to still be edible and still retain antimicrobial properties. Nothing else in nature behaves quite like this, and the reason comes down to chemistry. Raw honey contains hydrogen peroxide, which forms naturally as a byproduct of the enzyme glucose oxidase. It also contains methyl glyoxal, particularly in high concentrations in manuka honey, and a peptide called defensin-1, which is secreted by bees and contributes to honey's antibacterial properties. These 3 compounds work together, and studies have shown that raw honey can be effective against antibiotic-resistant bacteria, including MRSA. Research published in the European Journal of Clinical Microbiology and Infectious Diseases found that honey inhibited every species of bacteria it was tested against. Raw honey also acts as a prebiotic, meaning it supports the growth of beneficial bacteria in the gut. It has been shown to reduce markers of oxidative stress, soothe irritation in the digestive tract, and speed up the healing of wounds and burns when applied topically. One clinical study comparing honey to a conventional wound dressing found that honey-treated wounds healed faster and with lower rates of infection. The critical distinction here is raw versus processed. Most honey sold in supermarkets has been heated and filtered during production. This process extends shelf life and improves appearance, but it also destroys or significantly reduces the enzymes and antimicrobial compounds that give raw honey its properties. If you want the benefits that the research points to, the honey needs to be raw, unfiltered, and ideally sourced locally. The third food is garlic. Historical records from ancient Egypt show that garlic was included in the daily rations of laborers working on major construction projects, not as a flavoring but for endurance and resistance to illness. When supplies were disrupted, workers reportedly refused to continue until the garlic was restored. Ancient Egyptian medical texts from around 1550 BC list more than 20 different medicinal applications for garlic, which tells you that this was not casual or coincidental use. It was systematic. The active compound responsible for most of garlic's health effects is allicin, but allicin is not present in garlic in its whole form. It is produced when garlic is crushed or chopped through a chemical reaction involving an enzyme called alliinase. There is also a timing element that most people are not aware of. If you crush garlic and then immediately expose it to heat, you deactivate the alliinase enzyme before the reaction can complete. Letting crushed garlic sit for around 10 minutes before cooking allows the full conversion to take place and preserves a significantly greater proportion of the active compounds. Research published in Cancer Prevention found that people who regularly consumed raw garlic had a substantially lower risk of certain cancers, including lung cancer. Studies have also shown garlic to reduce blood pressure in people with hypertension, with an effectiveness that in some trials has been comparable to pharmaceutical treatment. It lowers total cholesterol, boosts the activity of white blood cells, and has demonstrated antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal properties in laboratory and clinical settings. The fourth substance is frankincense. Most people associate frankincense with religious ceremony, and while that association is historically accurate, it is only part of the picture. In the ancient world, frankincense was traded across the Middle East, Egypt, and into India, and was at various points valued more highly than gold. That valuation was not purely symbolic. It reflected medicinal utility that was widely understood at the time. The primary active compounds in frankincense resin are boswellic acids. These acids inhibit a specific enzyme called 5-lipoxygenase, which plays a central role in the body's inflammatory response. Chronic inflammation is increasingly understood by researchers to be a contributing factor in a wide range of serious conditions, including arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, asthma, and cardiovascular disease. A study published in Phytomedicine found that a standardized extract of Boswellia serrata, the tree from which frankincense is derived, significantly reduced symptoms in patients with osteoarthritis of their knee. What is particularly interesting from a neurological perspective is a separate compound found in frankincense called incensol acetate. A study published in the FASEB journal found that this compound activates ion channels in the brain associated with the regulation of anxiety and emotional response. When frankincense was burned in enclosed ceremonial spaces in the ancient world, the people breathing in the smoke were receiving a measurable neurological effect. Whether or not that was understood at the time, the practice was delivering a real and documentable outcome. Frankincense resin can be chewed, made into a tea, or taken in supplement form. It is used in some modern clinical settings, particularly for inflammatory conditions, and the research base supporting its use continues to grow. The fifth food is figs. The fig has one of the more striking examples of an ancient remedy that turns out to have a precise biochemical explanation. The story of King Hezekiah in the second book of Kings describes a king who was gravely ill from a severe infection, possibly a form of abscess or boil. The remedy prescribed was a poultice made from figs applied directly to the affected area. The king recovered. Figs contain an enzyme called phycin. Phycin is a proteolytic enzyme, which means it breaks down proteins. When applied to infected tissue, it can help dissolve dead or damaged cells and has demonstrated antibacterial activity. This is exactly the mechanism you would want to address a severe abscess, and it is a reasonable biochemical explanation for why the ancient remedy worked. Beyond the enzyme, figs have been studied for their potential role in cancer biology. Compounds in figs called benzaldehydes have shown the ability to suppress the growth of certain cancer cells in laboratory studies. Research published in the journal Nutrition and Cancer found that fig extract slowed the growth of human colon cancer cells. The research is relatively recent. The fig itself has been in use for thousands of years. Figs are also high in prebiotic fiber, which feeds beneficial bacteria in the gut. They are one of the highest plant-based sources of calcium available. And they contain a compound called chlorogenic acid, which has been shown in studies to help regulate blood glucose levels after meals, a property that is particularly relevant for people managing or at risk of type 2 diabetes. 5 foods, 5 very different chemical profiles and mechanisms. And in each case, the scientific evidence points in the same direction as the ancient use. That alignment is worth paying attention to. Moving on from those first 5, the next group of foods and plants covers a wider range of what people would have eaten and used on a daily basis in the ancient world. These are not rare resins or expensive imports. They are fruits, nuts, grains, and herbs that were grown, harvested, and consumed regularly across entire populations. And the science behind them is, in several cases, just as compelling as anything we looked at in the first group. The pomegranate is one of the most studied fruits in nutritional science over the past 20 years, and the findings have been consistent enough that it has attracted serious attention from cardiologists and oncology researchers alike. It is a fruit with an unusually dense concentration of a group of antioxidants called punicalagins, which are found almost exclusively in pomegranates and are partly responsible for giving the juice an antioxidant activity that has been measured at roughly 3 times that of red wine or green tea in comparative tests. A clinical trial published in the American Journal of Cardiology looked at patients with coronary artery disease who consumed pomegranate juice daily over a 3-month period. The results showed a measurable improvement in blood flow to the heart and a reduction in arterial plaque. These are not minor outcomes. Improved perfusion of the heart muscle and reduced arterial narrowing are directly relevant to the risk of heart attack. The seeds of the pomegranate contain punicic acid, a type of fatty acid that researchers are investigating for its potential to inhibit the growth of breast cancer cells. The white membrane inside the fruit, which most people discard, contains compounds that have shown antibacterial activity in the mouth and digestive tract. The whole fruit, in other words, has something to offer. Hyssop is a plant that fewer people are familiar with today, but it appears repeatedly in ancient texts in the context of cleansing and purification. It was used practically, not just symbolically, and the reason for that becomes clear when you look at its chemical composition. Hyssop contains 2 primary active compounds, carvacrol and thymol. These are the same antimicrobial compounds found in oregano oil, which has been extensively studied for its ability to disrupt the cell walls of bacteria and fungi. Thymol in particular is potent enough to be used as an active ingredient in modern antiseptic mouthwashes, which means the cleansing properties ancient people associated with hyssop were not imagined. They were real, and they are still being used today in commercial products. Research has shown hyssop extract to have activity against herpes simplex virus in laboratory testing. Its volatile oils have expectorant properties, meaning they help break up mucus and clear the respiratory tract. In European herbal medicine, hyssop tea has been used for centuries to treat bronchitis and chest congestion, and the mechanism behind that use is well understood chemically. Hyssop also promotes perspiration, which was a traditional method of helping the body lower a fever, a practice that modern medicine recognizes as a physiologically reasonable response to infection. Dates are one of the most nutritionally efficient foods in existence. A single date contains natural sugars in a combination of fructose, glucose, and sucrose that provides sustained energy without the sharp spike and subsequent crash associated with refined sugar. Historical records document nomadic populations surviving for extended periods in desert conditions on little more than dates and water. That is not a myth or an exaggeration. It reflects the density of what dates contain. They are rich in a flavonoid called luteolin and contain beta-carotene and zeaxanthin, the latter of which is specifically associated with eye health and the prevention of age-related macular degeneration. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that regular date consumption reduced triglyceride levels and markers of oxidative stress in the blood. A study published in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology found that women who ate 6 dates per day during the final 4 weeks of pregnancy had significantly better labor outcomes, including greater cervical dilation, less need for induced labor, and a shorter first stage of labor. Researchers proposed that compounds in dates may interact with oxytocin receptors in the uterus, which would explain the observed effects. This is a clinical finding that points to a very specific biological mechanism, and it was discovered by looking more closely at something that had been used in traditional practice for a very long time. Almonds are among the most nutritionally complete single foods available. 1 ounce of almonds provides around 37% of the daily recommended intake of vitamin E, which is a fat-soluble antioxidant that protects cell membranes from oxidative damage and plays a role in immune function, skin health, and eye health. What is less commonly known is that almonds are the only nut considered to have an alkalizing effect in the body. Most other nuts, along with the majority of processed and animal-based foods in a typical modern diet, are acid-forming. In a dietary environment that tends toward acidity, almonds actively work in the opposite direction. A large-scale study tracking over 76,000 women, published in the British Medical Journal, found that those who ate nuts 5 or more times per week had a 35% lower risk of heart attack compared to those who rarely consumed nuts. Almonds were among the most frequently consumed nuts in the study. The magnesium content in almonds also contributes to blood pressure regulation and improves insulin sensitivity, which is relevant for people with prediabetes or metabolic syndrome. The combination of healthy fats, fiber, protein, and micronutrients in almonds makes them one of the more straightforward and accessible dietary additions that nutritional research consistently supports. Grapes, and specifically the compounds found in red grape skins and seeds, have been the subject of substantial research interest since the 1990s. The compound resveratrol, found in the skin of red grapes, activates a class of proteins called sirtuins, which are sometimes referred to in research literature as longevity-associated proteins. These proteins are involved in regulating cellular aging, inflammation responses, and DNA repair mechanisms. Animal studies have shown resveratrol extending lifespan, and human research is ongoing in the areas of Alzheimer's prevention, cardiovascular protection, and cancer resistance. Grapeseed extract contains compounds called oligomeric proanthocyanidins, or OPCs. These have been measured in certain antioxidant tests as being significantly more potent than vitamin C and vitamin E. Fresh grapes also contain quercetin, which functions as a natural antihistamine and anti-inflammatory agent. Regular consumption of grapes has been associated in population studies with lower blood pressure, better kidney function, and reduced inflammatory markers in the blood. The breadth of activity across different systems in the body is what makes grapes across their various forms genuinely worth paying attention to beyond just their nutritional basics. Lentils are one of the oldest cultivated foods in human history, and the nutritional case for them is straightforward and well supported. A single cooked cup of lentils provides around 18 grams of protein, making them one of the most protein-dense plant foods available. They are high in folate, which is essential for DNA synthesis and repair, and is particularly important during pregnancy. They contain iron in a form that is relatively bioavailable, and they are loaded with soluble fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, lowers cholesterol, and stabilizes blood sugar levels. A study published in the Archives of Internal Medicine followed more than 9,000 participants and found that those who consumed legumes, including lentils, 4 or more times per week had a 22% lower risk of coronary heart disease compared to those who ate them less than once a week. That is a meaningful reduction in risk from a food that is inexpensive, widely available, and straightforward to prepare. Lentils also contain polyphenols with anti-inflammatory and antioxidant activity, and they rank low on the glycemic index, meaning they digest slowly and provide lasting satiety. In terms of the return they offer per unit of cost and effort, lentils are difficult to beat. Barley is a grain that has largely been displaced in modern diets by wheat and rice, but the research suggests this is a shift worth reconsidering. The key reason is a specific type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan. Beta-glucan is also found in oats, but barley contains it in higher concentrations. When consumed, beta-glucan forms a gel-like substance in the digestive tract that slows the absorption of glucose, which helps to stabilize blood sugar after meals. It also reduces the reabsorption of cholesterol, which is one of the mechanisms through which it lowers LDL cholesterol levels. Studies have shown barley reducing LDL cholesterol by up to 15%. improving blood sugar control in people with type 2 diabetes and reducing hunger signaling hormones, which leads to naturally lower calorie intake without deliberate restriction. The United States Food and Drug Administration has approved a health claim specifically for barley, recognizing its ability to reduce the risk of heart disease. That level of regulatory acknowledgement is unusual for a whole food and reflects the strength of the evidence base. Barley also contains plant compounds called lignans, which have been associated in research with a reduced risk of hormone-related cancers. As a grain, it offers a combination of slow-release energy, cardiovascular benefit, and gut support that most of what has replaced it in modern diets simply does not match. Coriander, the seed of the cilantro plant, is one of the oldest documented medicinal plants in human history. Evidence of its use has been found in ancient Egyptian tombs, and it appears in Sanskrit texts, Egyptian papyri, and Greek medical writings. Modern research has identified several distinct mechanisms through which it acts in the body. A compound in coriander seeds called linalool has demonstrated anti-anxiety effects in animal studies at a level comparable to diazepam, which is a pharmaceutical sedative, but without the associated risk of dependency. A study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology showed coriander seed extract significantly reducing anxiety-related behaviors, which supports what traditional medicine practitioners had long observed about its calming properties. Coriander is also an effective digestive remedy, reducing bloating, gas, and spasms in the gut. It has been shown to support blood sugar regulation by stimulating insulin secretion, and its essential oil has strong antibacterial properties effective against foodborne pathogens, including salmonella. One of the more unusual properties of coriander, and one that has attracted particular research interest, is its apparent ability to chelate heavy metals. Several studies have indicated that coriander can bind to heavy metals such as mercury, lead, and aluminium in bodily tissues and assist in their excretion. In an environment where exposure to environmental toxins is difficult to avoid entirely, that is a property with significant practical implications. The research in this area is still developing, but the early findings are consistent enough to be taken seriously. 8 foods, each with a distinct chemical profile, each documented in ancient use, and each now supported by a body of modern research that explains what people were observing long before the tools existed to measure it. The pattern at this point is hard to dismiss. The final group of plants and substances in this list moves into territory that most people in the modern world are either completely unfamiliar with or have only encountered in very narrow contexts. These are resins, spices, and plants that were once considered among the most valuable commodities in the ancient world, and when examined through the lens of modern biochemistry, their use turns out to have been remarkably well-founded. Myrrh is a resin extracted from the Commiphora tree and has been used medicinally for thousands of years across the Middle East and North Africa. The active compounds include sesquiterpenes, which have been shown to interact directly with the limbic system of the brain, the area most associated with emotional regulation and hormonal response. Researchers at the University of Florence found that myrrh extract demonstrated significant activity against multiple types of cancer cells in laboratory testing. It has also been validated for its effectiveness against gum disease, mouth sores, and throat infections, which is why it still appears as an active ingredient in certain modern mouthwashes and toothpastes. It reduces blood cholesterol and triglycerides, supports thyroid function, and has demonstrated meaningful wound healing properties when applied topically. Cumin has been cultivated and used medicinally across the ancient Near East for thousands of years. Research published in the journal Nutrition and Cancer found that cumin significantly inhibited the development of stomach and liver tumors in experimental models. The compound most responsible for this, particularly in black cumin, is thymoquinone. Black cumin seed oil, derived from Nigella sativa, has accumulated over 1,000 published studies documenting activity across a wide range of conditions: improved asthma symptoms, reduced blood pressure, lowered blood sugar, activity against Helicobacter pylori in the gut, enhanced immune function, and anti-cancer activity across multiple tumor types. The breadth of documented activity is unusual even among the most well-studied plants. Peppermint has one of the strongest evidence bases of any herbal remedy in modern gastroenterology. Multiple randomized controlled trials have demonstrated that enteric-coated peppermint oil capsules reduce the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome as effectively as antispasmodic pharmaceutical drugs, with a more favorable side effect profile. Menthol activates cold receptors while simultaneously inhibiting pain receptors, reducing the spasms and discomfort characteristic of the condition. Spearmint tea has been shown in clinical trials to reduce androgen levels in women with polycystic ovarian syndrome, with 2 cups per day producing measurable hormonal changes within 30 days. Research from the University of Cincinnati also found that exposure to peppermint before cognitive testing improved performance on tasks requiring sustained attention and memory. Mustard seed contains sinigrin, which breaks down into allyl isothiocyanate when crushed or chewed. This belongs to a class of compounds called glucosinolates, among the most intensively studied anti-cancer compounds in nutritional science. Population studies consistently show that people who regularly eat brassica vegetables, which include mustard, have significantly lower rates of colon, lung, and prostate cancer. The mechanism involves the activation of a detoxification enzyme system in the liver that neutralizes carcinogens before they can damage DNA. Bitter herbs, including dandelion, chicory, watercress, and endive, share a group of compounds called iridoids and sesquiterpene lactones that stimulate the production and increase liver enzyme activity. The liver is the body's primary detoxification organ, and when its function is compromised by processed food, environmental pollutants, or alcohol, the downstream effects are wide-ranging. Bitter herbs directly stimulate the organ responsible for clearing those burdens. Dandelion root has been shown in research to protect liver cells from damage, act as a natural diuretic, and reduce inflammation. Moringa, native to the regions of the Sinai, ancient Palestine, and Egypt, has been documented in ancient Egyptian texts for its medicinal applications. Dried moringa leaves contain higher concentrations of vitamin C than oranges, more calcium per gram than milk, more vitamin A than carrots, and more potassium than bananas. Its isothiocyanate compounds have demonstrated in multiple independent studies the ability to suppress NF-κB, a master regulator of inflammation in the human body, with implications for arthritis, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. A published study showed moringa extract reducing blood glucose in diabetic subjects by up to 28%, comparable in scale to some pharmaceutical interventions. What runs through all 20 of these plants and foods is the same pattern. They were used and valued by populations who had no access to clinical trials or biochemical analysis. Modern science has since identified the mechanisms that explain what those populations were already observing. In case after case, the chemistry supports the practice. These plants are not alternatives to medicine in any dismissive sense. In many cases, they are medicine, and they have been for a very long time.